Hello, and welcome back to the Simplifiers podcast, where we take topics in work and in life and simplify them. And friends, let me ask you, how do you feel you are represented out in the world? And here's, let me back up and say this real quick. How you show up on LinkedIn, how you show up in your digital presence. Maybe that's on Facebook or Twitter or even TikTok. How do you show up out in the world, either personally or professionally? And let me just ask you, do you feel like, well, what's the point? Why is this important? Well, I can tell you about a million bazillion reasons, but better yet, I've got an expert that's going to help you uncover what she calls your digital swagger, build that personal brand to unlock new opportunities, open some doors that have never been opened before for you in your career. Her name is Tamika Brunetti. Her mission is to help you find your digital voice, establish your digital presence, and uncover that digital swagger of yours. As the head of TCB Solutions Group, she educates and trains people on LinkedIn, and she's also trained thousands of sales, customer success, field marketers, recruiters, consultants, and more on the power of LinkedIn's sales solution, which is called Sales Navigator. She's also consulted hundreds on optimizing their LinkedIn profiles and enhancing their engagement. So I'd like to welcome to the Simplifiers podcast, Tamika Brunetti. Hey, Tamika.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. And I'm so glad you're here. And I know I can hear my most cynical friends and my most introverted listeners going, hang on, what is digital swagger and why in the world do I care about this? And why is it important for my career to have a personal brand? What would you say to them?
Digital swagger is simple. It is basically showing up how you want to be known in the world on whatever social media platform you feel most comfortable with.
Yeah. Yeah. And why is it important?
Because how else are you going to be found? If you're looking for a new job, right? How are hiring managers going to even know that you exist? How are recruiters going to know that you exist? How are potential clients going to know that you exist? The world has changed since COVID to where we no longer get to walk down those physical hallways. So I look at specifically LinkedIn as like our digital hallway. So that's why.
Yeah. And I will be the first to tell everybody, people have known that this year in particular, I've been on a bit of a job search myself. You guys, spoiler alert, the job market right now is wild. There are hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of incredibly talented people out there in the job market and not a lot of jobs for people to be placed in. So I feel like nowadays, now more than ever, you really got to step up your game because this is the piece that helps you get known and seen as a thought leader out in your specific field and industry. This is a must-have. This is not a nice to have, right?
I totally agree. If you haven't been on LinkedIn, you need to get there today. Like run. Run as fast as you can.
Yeah. And I like how you say like a digital hallway, because it really, when I show up on LinkedIn, I think about it as, how do I want to be positioned as a thought leader in my industry? What are the three key things that I want people to quickly know about who I am? If they were just scrolling through my most recent post, so I try to be very strategic about like what I'm posting about, what I'm reposting or the thoughts that I'm putting out into the world. What about you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's key to understand why you're going to be there, how you want to show up, and what you're going to communicate. As a true introvert, LinkedIn has enabled me to really find my voice. And so I feel comfortable, sharing my thoughts and putting myself out there, because in real life, we could be having a conversation and I may not be the quickest with the comeback because like 3 days later, I'll be like, oh, I should have said X, right? But with LinkedIn, I can noodle on it, and 3 days later, I can respond. So I like that ability.
Interesting, Tamika. Like, I would have never in a million bazillion years guessed that you were an introvert based on how you show up online. That's so interesting to me because I think about my introverted listeners and friends, and they're going, "Yeah, but I'm an introvert. I don't like putting myself out there." Like, what advice would you give those people who tend to keep their private lives sort of private online?
Well, I mean, that was my concern when I first started as well. But understand this. I have been a member on LinkedIn since April 16th, 2006.
That's very specific.
I got a happy anniversary, 18 years from LinkedIn.
Wow.
And so I've been on there just like most people. I had an account just because everyone else had one, right? But I really didn't start doing anything with it until 2018 when I decided I wanted to make a pivot in my professional life. And so when it comes to those who are like, oh, I want to be private. Well, first and foremost, you control what people see. There's privacy and settings that most people don't ever go look at, but you have to. If you're gonna start with any platform, you need to go out there and make sure that you set it up in the privacy and settings the way that you want it to look, right? If you only want your first name to be visible when people search for you, okay, you can do that. If you don't want people to see your email address, you can opt out. I mean, there's things that you can do to safeguard your privacy. So don't think that everything is, once you get on there, that people are going to know everything about you. You're the filter. You control what people see. So write your own sword.
That's interesting because I used to be about 10 years ago, I made a cognitive shift. And I remember 10 years ago, I was like church and state. I have friends who I will only friend on Facebook, and any work friends or work colleagues, people I know from industry conferences, it was very separate. I was like, I am this person over here and I am this person over there. And, over the last 10 years, that's evolved. I've started to blend it all together because it's exhausting to have two different personas online. And also, I bet a bit confusing for people. Like, is this work Mary or is this, fun time Mary? And I think that for me, at least, I've evolved how I look at social media and my relationship with social media. I don't post vacation photos of my kids on LinkedIn at all, maybe one here or there, but it's kind of linked to, hey, here's what I learned in the season of self-care and, taking a step back, but it's from a professional lens. Whereas my Facebook, it will talk about the podcast. It will talk about personal things, but I'm less talking about, thought leadership, topics or questions to ponder when it comes to my professional experience. And so, I think to your point, yes, you have the ability to filter what it is you're putting on different platforms as you see fit, right?
Right. And so a good example I can share with you is, think of a photo of, say, vacation with your family that has, say you go to the beach and it's the beach and the water, maybe it's a sunrise, and you post that. The content or the caption that you're going to put on LinkedIn is going to be so much different. It's going to be more about how, sitting here in solace and reflecting on what I could do in order to, edify my career. Right. Yeah. But then that same picture, you take it to Facebook or Instagram, is all about, oh my goodness, whoever you praise, it has made this day so that I can, spend more time with my family or whatever. But it's the same photo. It can just show different sides of who you are because we are complex.
And, let's face it as well. I think recruiters and hiring managers, the first thing they're going to do is Google you, right? Bottom line. So they're going to Google your name. And if you've got an unusual name, you're going to be really easy to find. And if your profiles like LinkedIn are public, that's a quick way for them to go and scan very quickly, because I believe no one's reading anymore. They're just scanning and then getting a sense of who you are professionally. And if they stumble upon your personal Facebook Facebook page, they're getting a sense of who you are outside of work. And so thinking about what message I want to put out in the world makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're essentially curating the experience that people have with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Depending on where you decide to spend your time.
Yeah. Let's talk about how to uncover your digital swagger, which I love this term totally. So where should we begin? What are the first steps?
Well, first of all, you need to decide what platform you want to be on. Is it going to be LinkedIn? Is it going to be Instagram? Or maybe Instagram's newest version of Threads, which is almost like the competitor to X. So you got to figure out where you want to be, right? And since we're talking primarily about that professional side, I'll stick to LinkedIn. You want to understand or define what your persona is going to be, right? And when I say persona, that essentially is, who are you going to show up as? Are you going to be a consumer? And a consumer is just purely someone who is on social media, reading, scrolling, just taking everything in. They don't engage, they don't react, they don't do anything. There's so many people who are consumers, because a lot of people who post things will get upset or get discouraged because they'll say, no one's, engaging with me. And then a random person will come up to you and say, oh my God, I just love that post you put on LinkedIn about XYZ. But they didn't like it. They didn't, comment. So people are all about consumption. So do you want to be a consumer? Do you want to be an engager? An engager kind of flexes what they do. Or, they may select one of the reactions. They might repost. They might comment. They might do all of them or, reshare. So some people flex that way. And then you have the creator, the people who are out there putting out, either original content or repurposing others' content and adding their thought leadership to whatever it is that they're sharing. So it's understanding that, right? So you've got platform, you've got persona, and then you also need to think about your profile. So your profile is foundational to everything. So table stakes, when it comes to your profile, it's all about the basics. That introduction card at the top that has like the banner, your photo, everyone should have an up-to-date introduction card. But then also the core section, right? And then you need to think about engagement. How do you plan to engage with others? What is your frequency? Are you just going to reply to comments on Tuesdays, right? And post on Fridays, whatever works for you. But then also think about maintenance. And maintenance is, how often are you going to update your profile? So those are some of the key things I would tell people to do.
And you know what I hear in all of this? And I hear my cynical friend in the back of my head going, yeah, that sounds like a lot of effort. But my response to that, and I think Tamika's response is definitely going to be, what's your purpose? What is your intent? What are you hoping to gain? And defining that why of building this digital swagger, this online presence on LinkedIn, let's say. And once you've got that as a clear North Star, then you can start to say, okay, right, how do I put boundaries on this so I'm not just endlessly doom scrolling LinkedIn all day, right? And wasting my time, but using it in a very, very targeted way, right?
Exactly. So once you get clear on where you're trying to go with it, are you trying to be doing research? Are you trying to establish a new book of business or go deep and wide within your book of business? Whatever the case may be, take that time up front to figure that out, and the rest will be seamless. Yeah. That's the hardest part. It's getting started with the right direction and the North Star, like you said.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you take me as the guinea pig. Yeah. The beginning of this year, I was looking for a role and, in transition to that next role. And I quickly realized yes, I have a lot of background with social media marketing. So I knew the value, preaching to the choir here. And I knew I wanted to show up in a visible way because to your point, that's how recruiters get to know my name. That's how hiring managers go, hang on, who's that Mary girl that keeps talking about leadership development or, employee engagement or whatever. And so I was very, very targeted with my strategy of building kind of my online presence on LinkedIn. I'd post once a day, Monday through Friday, and anything I'm posting would be during regular working hours in the US, and really super targeted. So really pointing to my top 3 topics that I wanted to be seen as a thought leader. And to put a point to what you said earlier, sometimes, it's just as simple as reposting something that someone else has already put together, a beautiful graphic or a great little blurb or snippet, and then reposting with my own thoughts and saying, hey, this graph talks about talent development strategies. And, here are the 3 things I pulled out of this that you should do X, Y, and Z. What do you guys think? And spark a conversation. And that builds that communication. People comment, yes, I agree. No, I don't agree. And here's why. And that builds engagement, right? Is there anything I could have done differently just hearing kind of that strategy?
No, what you said was perfect. And I love the fact when you said that, you take someone else's content, you reshare it, you add your thoughts. That is key because there's so many people, especially think about employers. They all have their employee advocacy strategies these days, right? So they want their employees to share content on LinkedIn so that their network and their brand gets out there, right? But most people will just share it. They won't change the caption that's been provided, or they won't put any caption whatsoever. And so your network, you come up on someone's feed and they're like, okay, why do I need to look at this? And they just keep scrolling. So the fact that you say, this is what I took from it. What about you? And then you start that conversation. Now you've entered the hallway. Now you're talking to people at that virtual water cooler, right? And going back and forth because someone may have a very a very insightful point, you respond, and then it just keeps going back and forth. And then you never know. You might end up on a Zoom call with that person having a conversation off topic, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, even for me, I was starting to notice that when I followed, say, 5 to 10 real thought leaders in my space as well, LinkedIn would get smart and realize in the algorithms, like, hey, you want to see posts by this person, or, when this person even likes or comments on somebody else's, it pops up into my notifications. And then I can be part of the conversation with these massive thought leaders. And all of a sudden you're no longer just sort of sitting on the wings. You're engaging with people who are movers and shakers in your industry. For me, it's a no-brainer. Like it definitely, I've seen the payoff. It's opened doors and helped me get in interviews and ultimately land a role. And so it's exciting to see the possibility with a platform like LinkedIn in particular.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I'm an introvert, but I feel much more comfortable commenting or posting, on LinkedIn because I can take the time to really put my thoughts together before I put it out there. Inevitably, I will have a misspelling. It is what it is. That's just who I am, right? So don't be afraid of that. You can edit or you can delete and start over, right? So that's one thing that a lot of people are like, oh my God, it might come across the wrong way. Well, if it does, delete it and rewrite it, right? But yes, doing those things, what you're sharing with everyone is key. And I truly believe the more that folks are just taking those little steps, it's going to be second nature. And you're going to make your engagement on LinkedIn as just part of your natural day.
Yeah. And once you build relationships by just simply liking or commenting to other people's posts, over time, I would say 2 or 3 weeks after I've connected with somebody, I will get the courage up to send them a private message and say, hey, I'd love to carve out 15 or 30 minutes and have a virtual coffee chat with you to learn more about the culture of XYZ company that you work for or whatever. And, I tell you, it does take a lot of courage. And I'm an extrovert. It still takes courage to do that. But I would get more calls booked than not. I would get more yeses than nos. And that, you guys, is the gold. That's where you really start to build a network of people who know, like, and trust you. And it goes from a superficial place to a whole lot deeper that, again, opens those doors, right?
That's how we met.
Yes, exactly. Right. And because I was courageous and I reached out and I was like, you're doing something really cool over there. I see you. And, say, Levy, here we are 6 months later.
Right. And I tell everybody that if you just start that engagement, that relationship in the comments, start just reacting, make your name. I used to tell everyone, or I would tell people when I'm doing my sales navigator training, you want to be a household name. You want to become a household name, like a product like Clorox, right? So if someone keeps seeing in their notifications that, oh, Tamika liked this, Tamika commented here, Tamika reposted, by the time I send them that email or that connection request, they're going to be like, oh yeah, that's just Tamika, and they'll accept it.
Yeah.
So why not, warm them up so they're familiar with you and they're more open to having a conversation or responding to whatever it is that you're sharing with them.
And again, to your point at the beginning, this is not just for people who are job seekers. This is great for new business development managers, people that are trying to drum up new clients and things like that. Do not be spammy. Do not be weird and cringy, but build genuine relationships with people online in an authentic way where you're helping and you're sharing really interesting articles and topics. That's the way we build relationships in real life, face to face 20, 30 years ago. We're just using the digital platform to connect with people all over the world and not just in our backyard, right?
Well, the thing about it, what you said at the end, all over the world, there's over 1 billion people on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You can connect with people in over 200 countries and regions across the globe. I have made connections with people in Ireland, Argentina, Australia. I have not been to those places yet, but when I do go there, I'm going to reach out to them so I can take our relationship to the next step and meet in real life, right?
Yeah, have a coffee in real life. Yeah.
Right, it's beautiful. So yeah. Expand your horizons.
So let's talk about the how. How can I update? And let's just focus on LinkedIn for simplicity. How do I update my LinkedIn digital profile in 30 minutes or less? Like, what are those key elements on my LinkedIn profile that I should focus on first? You said headline at the top. That's like the tagline, your name. What else?
Well, so at the top is your introduction card. Yeah, that is table stakes. But when it comes to your introduction card, the headline specifically, you need to make it compelling. Okay. There's 3 questions that I tell people. If they can answer these 3 questions, it's going to spark curiosity and people are going to want to know a little bit more and they're going to keep scrolling. And so the default for your headline is your current job title and your employer. Womp womp. You're more than just a job title. So you want to answer these 3 questions. Who do you help? How do you help them? And what results do you yield? Again, who do you help? How do you help them? And what results do you yield? That's just summarizing all the greatness that you bring to the table in 240 characters.
Love it. Yeah.
Right.
And, then that's keywords that are searchable on the back end for recruiters as well. So if you're an expert in, I don't know, leadership development or sales enablement, then you'd want to interject those keywords into that headline, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what you want to do. Because you'll see a lot of people have on their headline different skills or systems that they're very fluent in. So they might say leadership development / Qualtrics / whatever. Take those keywords and answer those 3 questions that I provided you. Now people know who you are and if they want to spend time getting to know you. Right.
Okay. Got it. Moving on.
So beyond the introduction card, you want to make sure, and I know this is going to hurt for some introverts, you want to make sure that you have enabled the creator mode so that you can have your profile automatically shifted so that you have the featured section above your about section. And in that featured section, that's your personal portfolio of all the greatness that you are, right? You can highlight videos, articles, work products that you have, whatever it is. Think of it as your personal portfolio because you only have so much time, for people to stay focused on who you are. Our attention spans are short. And think about when it comes to recruiters. I remember there's the concept of thirds when it comes to a resume. If they look at the first third and then they keep going, you got them hooked, right? Same thing when it comes to LinkedIn. You want to have the good stuff at the top, right? So make sure you got the featured section. 3 pieces of content in that featured section, good, at least.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
just an aside on that really quick, because I'll put a link in the show notes. Again, everything that we're talking about today, you can find over at thesimplifiers.com. Look for this episode. You'll find all the links that Tamika and I share. But I'll also link my LinkedIn because this is something advice I'd been given years ago. And that featured section, you're absolutely right. It's the superstar moments of success or accomplishments. So I will also screenshot my recommendations in LinkedIn. So if somebody has said nice words to me, about my work ethic, I'll put it in as a post and I'll say, getting recommendations like this remind me of one of my superhero skills, blah, blah, blah. And, you can see it. Or like, for example, there was one time where I got to teach 650 people at my last employer, on emotional intelligence skills. And so being able to post that really quickly, a recruiter can see, oh, wow, recommendation. Somebody else said nice things about her. She must be good. Oh, wow, she spoke to a very large audience. Oh, wow, she just accomplished the certification. Boom, boom, boom. It's a very quick and easy and visual way for people to see you've got the goods, you've got the receipts.
I agree. And then just to piggyback, also make sure that you update your most recent experience and add rich media there. So some of the content that you put in the featured section, you can also add it to your experience so that you have a mini portfolio under each one of your work experience. But always make sure in 30 minutes or less, you update the most recent one and make sure you add skills that you've acquired in at least the last 6 months.
Love it. Yeah. Moving on. What else?
Also, you mentioned recommendations. People sleep on recommendations. Now, with the recommendations, you've already gotten performance reviews. People send you emails or, they have recognition programs within your company. You can copy and paste those, send them in a message to whoever wrote it and say, hey, can you please add this to my LinkedIn profile as a recommendation, right?
Yeah.
Think of your recommendation and those skills and endorsements that in concert as your personal Yelp review, right? Because if you're saying you're the best leadership development professional out there, and then your recommendations, they're only talking about, they're talking about talent acquisition. Well, that doesn't match, right? But if your recommendations match all of that, they're going to be like, okay, she's the real deal, or he's the real deal, and she's got the receipts to back it.
Yeah. Do you know one extra thing that I did in that particular is I started to notice in the roles that I was most interested in and the most qualified for certain skills coming up over and over and over again in the job rec. For example, like data analytics or strategic planning. I actually made a little grid and I thought, okay, who do I know that I've worked with recently that knows my skills in data analytics? Who do I know that knows that I'm super qualified when it comes to strategic planning? And I identified that a person that would write a recommendation, just, it'd be so easy for them to do so. And I made it part of my job search strategy. So I have 10 skills. They're matching to the job descriptions that I was applying for. And I was strategically targeting people and going, hey, Thomas, can you write a recommendation specifically about my data analysis skills at this last role? If you need me to write a couple of sentences just to get started, I'm happy to do that. And 9 times out of 10, again, make it as easy as possible for people to do the thing. And then, roll them out and post them on your feed one a week, a recommendation every week. And it's amazing. Like it's free content. It's reinforcing, how you want to show up online. And I think it really helped me with recruiters and locking in those interviews.
I love that best practice that you put into place. That is, I'm going to have to steal that.
You can steal it. Totally. Yeah.
But I would offer that you take it one step further. I know you said, Thomas, if you need some bullet points, I can share those with you. Go ahead and write them and send it to them, because you're just making it even easier. And then they can tweak it and put their own little spin on it.
Yeah. Yeah. So is there anything else that people should know, like when it comes to putting themselves out there, why is engagement one of the greatest rewards from all of this effort? Like, how do we make it all worth it in your mind?
Well, I would say engagement just continues to bear gifts, right? If you start to become that household name, You never know who's out there paying attention to what it is that you're saying, what you're posting, who you're engaging with. Because I've been given opportunities to, do paid speaking engagements and paid trainings, all because of I decided I'm going to show up as Tamika on LinkedIn, right? I'm, just going to be who I am. I have certain things that I want to talk about, and I won't deviate from that, right? But they enjoyed it, just seeing it, and they, reach out and offer these opportunities. So engagement equals gifts and opportunity.
And engagement, especially on social media, especially on LinkedIn, comes easier when you post videos instead of just written stuff. And you do a great job of that, kind of vertical style videos. We're not talking big, mega, huge budgets of production values or anything like that. We're talking literally your phone, hitting record, 30 to 60-second video. And maybe it's a thought of the day or a question of the day. Hey, I read this article about blah, blah, blah. Here's my thought. Like, what do you guys think? I think that shows to future employers, future clients, your communication style and, how personable you are, and really gets a sense for your tone of voice, where that sometimes gets lost in written. And all social media platforms love videos. Videos get the highest amount of engagement, right?
Yes, they do. And, one of the things that I would highly recommend to everyone on here or who listens is to record a video, a 30-second video of yourself saying, state your name, what it is that you do. You can even answer those 3 questions from the headline, like, who do you help? How do you help them? And what results do you yield? And post it or save it to your featured section, because there's something about hearing that person's voice that makes that connection stronger, as opposed to just reading what was, in your headline or whatever. But it's all about making sure that people can either detect that, oh, you're from the same region of the country that I'm from, or, oh, I didn't know you had an accent, or whatever it is. It just makes you more human, and it's a deeper connection. So I totally agree with that, with the video.
Yeah. And again, introverts out there, you're cringing at the thought of putting yourself on video. I hear you, but I feel like it's like Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours. Like, you just got to put the reps in for a new skill to become second nature. I mean, even for me as a public speaker, I still get a little bit like, I have to be on camera. We all get the jitters. The one thing that I did, this is years and years ago when I lived overseas in England, whenever I had to walk from my gym to my office, it was like about a 7-minute walk going from one place to the next. And I forced myself for about 30 or 60 days to record a video of myself literally walking up the hill, just, and having a thought of the day. And I would force myself to post it online as well. And what that did is that got me out of my overthinking brain and just was like, okay, what are we talking about today, Mary? Employee engagement. Okay, cool. What's your angle? Oh, I read an article about blah, blah, blah. Perfect. Hit record. Like, so you can't overthink. Like, oh my God, is the set design wrong? Is my hair all wrong? Like, did I say a bumbling thing? It's just literally getting you to do the reps, to get the practice in. And yes, your first 10, 20, 50 videos are going to be terrible. And that's okay, right? Because that's the 51st video where people are like, hey, she's got something to say. And I really love seeing her little thoughts of the day. Just do it, right?
Yes. And I love that. And, I'm a big fan of the delete. So if it didn't come out right, delete, start over, right?
That's true. Yeah. And you're still getting the practice. You're still getting the reps in. Yes. All right. So if you're curious about the work that Tamika does in the world, I highly recommend reaching out to her. It's TCB Solutions Group. That's tcbsg.co. All of the links are in the show notes where you can connect with her online on LinkedIn or through her website. And you also have a tip sheet that you're sharing to our audience, 8 things to do on LinkedIn to stand out. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, these are just activities that you can do. You can make them part of your maintenance schedule or weekly schedule, just to make sure that you are showing up and controlling your narrative. We don't want people to just come up with who they think you are. You tell them who you are, right? And if you're, depending on what your persona is, or even what your purpose is, are you trying to land a new client or trying to expand your network, utilizing the reactions or the notifications at the top to really drive the direction in which you need to go. That'll keep you on your toes. That'll make sure that you're, small talk, because there is small talk when it comes to the digital hallway as well. But once you practice that small talk, you'll get much more comfortable having even more in-depth conversations, having really impactful comments to posts that you see out there. So just practice. Everyone starts in the same spot. No one starts out as, oh my God, I'm just this fluent and I'm so charismatic on LinkedIn. No, like I said, I've been on here for 18 years.
Yeah.
And I'm just now figuring stuff out.
Yeah. So just begin, I think is the best advice. So as we wrap up, there's a few questions I'd like to ask you that I ask everybody that comes on the podcast. So here we go. First off, what's one book or blog that you're reading these days that's either inspiring you or poking holes and challenging your belief system?
So the one book that I want to share, it's called Up Home by Ruth J. Simmons. I don't know if you can see it, but it's basically about this incredible woman who grew up in East Texas, basically lived in a shack and became the, president of, I believe it is, Smith University, Brown University, Prairie View A&M University. I mean, she had all the odds stacked against her, and she's doing incredible things. So that was a Christmas gift from my husband.
Love it. Yeah, we'll link that book up in the show notes. You guys are curious about it. Again, you can find all the show notes for this episode at thesimplifiers.com. So tell me, who's somebody in your network, somebody that you know personally, you just feel is up to brilliant things? We could shine a spotlight on them. And who knows, maybe one day we'll invite them on the podcast. Who would that be?
I would say Amanda Cahill. Now, I met her through mutual connections and got to know her pretty good. And she has started her own podcast. It's called Redefining Motherhood. And she talks about, real life issues as a new mom, high performing sales executive who's just trying to maintain her sense of self and that successful career, but also, be a great mom. And she's very real. I mean, it's raw, it's unfiltered. And I just love listening to what she has to share and all the people that she brings on her show.
I love hearing about other podcasts. We'll link that up in the show notes for you guys as well to check it out. I believe gratitude and simplicity go hand in hand. Tell me, what are you grateful for today?
My husband. And I'm grateful because today we are celebrating our 20th wedding anniversary. And it's because he challenges me. He edifies me. He's supportive. He's my best friend, right? And there's something about having that one person who totally gets you and can make you be the best at any given time, whether you are, you're dealing with COVID or what have you. They're just always going to be there for you. And I'm grateful for Chris and, our simple life.
Shout out to Chris here. Yes, I love hearing that. Love always wins. So again, if you want to find Tamika, find her on our show notes, link up with her on LinkedIn. She's definitely a person and wealth of knowledge in this space, especially if you're feeling a little bit nervous about putting yourself out there. Highly, highly, highly recommend. Now, my final question for you today is this. And again, thank you so much for your time. Someone somewhere is listening to you and I right now, and they're like, yep, I know I need to do this. Yep, this sounds like a good idea. Yep, I think I'm in, but they're so nervous to just get started. What's one thing you could whisper in their ear right now just to encourage them in this moment?
I would tell them, just do it. Everyone feels the same. And once you do your first post, your first comment, your first reaction, you're going to say, that wasn't so bad. And then you're going to do it again. And then you're going to do it again. And then it's just going to become a part of your life. But definitely just start. Just start with that's great. Thanks. That's all.
Yeah. Just do the thing. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you.
No, thank you. I appreciate you and the Simplifiers community.